Hey guys, I'm Jonathan White, and today I have a special guest with me, Loren Johnson, who's been one of my teachers and instructors in sexual kung fu and energy cultivation practices. Loren, you want to just give a little introduction on what you do?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Jonathan. Thank you so much for all who are tuning in and your interest in this sacred practice. In my humble opinion, never before known history if we needed it more. So I'm senior instructor 2, actually. There's a new level 2 through Grandmaster Montauk Chia. I'm technically the highest certified instructor in the US, just from the higher alchemy and the work I've done with the sexual practices over the years. I'm also a licensed acupuncturist, which I went through that training really just to understand more the medical Tao, because the Tao is a very religiously neutral system of evolution, of health. It's basically sailing. What's nature doing? How can I align my sails in a way where I can ride the waves instead of going against the grain like most people? So yeah, I'm really, really grateful to you, Jonathan, for the work you've done. You've really framed it well so other people can understand it. And I appreciate you granting time and space for this interview today.
Thanks. It's an honor to be here, chatting with you, Loren. And I found your work back in 2015. I was getting into Montauk Chia's work, learning about the different practices, and I found your YouTube channel, which was just a phenomenal resource. Tons of practices. I think you posted like 108 videos of just all these different practices. And then I went through your raw tantra sexual training program as well. So just totally helped me take my practice to another level. So really grateful for the practicality, how you really kind of take these practices down to their essence and make them very applicable to those of us who are living busy lives in this modern world.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. Master Chia is arguably the most famous yoga teacher in the world of any lineage, certainly the Tao, but because he's so well published. But I mean, you'll read a book, and I mean, it's so detailed, so that's kind of what people come to me for, just distill it down to its essence. Here's 5 minutes a day that you can build on, that kind of thing. So that's why I made all those YouTube videos on wellness, and then my raw tantra channel as well. Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm curious about, kind of your background before you became, an instructor of these arts. Like what was Loren Johnson doing before he was, sharing acupuncture, sexual practices, Tao practices?
Yes, sir. Well, I moved to LA about 2 weeks out. I'm from Texas. Born in Michigan, kind of all over, but I grew up in Texas. And I moved to LA about 2 weeks after graduating to become a professional model actor, which I was. I was a Gap model for years. I did some work on WB, little TV, whatever, yada, yada. But I don't like to stay up all night. I can't drink because I have part Native American. I don't like to have promiscuous sex. So Hollywood was like, well, I don't know. Plus, they told me when I was like 19, you're really too old to start. I was like, what? So I got a little work. I made a little money, but big picture, I'm like, I just don't think. And now it's happened with Hollywood. I'm glad I didn't go any farther. So I took the money I made, particularly from my Gap campaigns, and I put it into bodywork training. So I did professional bodywork for years, and then yoga training, because my first job in LA, I was a fitness instructor because I was really into yoga, fitness and martial arts as a kid. So I recognized in LA, which in California has more yogis per capita than anywhere in the world, at least at that time in the 2000s. Early 2000s. I think it's still that way. I recognize yoga to be the pinnacle of fitness. So I started doing yoga every single day. There's a big Kundalini. That's where Yogi Bhajan landed in LA. So I did a ton of Kundalini. But then that segued into the Tao because it's a very grounded form of Kundalini is one way of framing it. And there's also more accessibility just to the higher evolution in general, and specifically the sexual practices. So it transitioned from Kundalini to the Tao.
That's awesome. I've heard that story from a lot of healing Tao instructors. Like they were into like Kundalini yoga and some of these other more fiery practices. That was me myself. I was way into Kundalini yoga, but I was just super ungrounded, too much fire, just like felt like I was floating out of my body all day. And the Taoist practices were so much more grounded and embodied.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have to say, I do. There's aspects of Kundalini that I practice, like the chanting, I love, but they're really intense, like breath of fire, their lack of grounding, and even their judgment, because Chi follows focus. You ask them why they're sitting on a lambskin to disconnect from the impure energy of the earth. And it's like, well, the famous saying in the Tao, one of them is embody the earth, heaven will chase you. So you need, humanity is the child of heaven and earth, three sources of chi in the Tao, heaven, earth, humanity. And so you're just, in my first Kundalini class, you're activating the higher chakras, but you don't have the lower chakras to hold it. So yeah, same thing. I'll dabble in the Kundalini. I think of it as the cayenne pepper of the yogas when I really want to spice it up, but the Tao is definitely my main practice.
What was it that really made you want to be a certified healing Tao instructor? What made you want to like bring these practices and share them with the world?
Yes, sir. There was two kind of, I just have to say overall, probably the sexual practices. I don't just be a helpless man, like horny guy, but that's even what put Master Chi on the map, kind of next level. Like people didn't really know who he was as much until he hit that book with the Cultivating Male Sexual Energy that Michael Wynn co-wrote. So that certainly attracted me. I was also, when I moved to LA, exposed to Kabbalah, because I have half on my stepdad is Jewish, and so I had that exposure kind of growing up. My mom's not Jewish, so I'm not, but nonetheless, that was my first kind of introduction to mysticism. So I got into a little bit of Kabbalah, and it's kind of super intellectual. It's got great stuff, but I read a book called The Tao and the Tree of Life by another senior instructor, Eric Stephen Udlove, and I was like, whoa, I got to check out the Tao. And so it was a combination of the accessibility to the higher evolution, kind of decodified. You don't need to know all these intellectual thought forms, yada yada. Look, you have a liver, you have kidneys, tap them, breathe, whatever. I like the accessibility of the Tao, but yeah, the sexual practices, man. There's nothing, even in the Tantra world, that even touches with humility that I know of. Okay, so that's that even touches the Tao, because even right hand path, left hand path in Tantra, everyone's so freaking tight ass. Pardon my French audio, but anyway, yeah, the sexual practices are probably the main thing.
Awesome. That was kind of my introduction as well. I read Multi-Orgasmic Man by Montauk Chi and was like, okay, there's some, I was doing yoga at the time too, but this was kind of like the missing link for me with the sexual practices. And then I understood, okay, well, if I want to do this, I need to do Qigong, I need to open up my energy channels. And then that got me on this whole path of, wow, this is incredible and changing my life. And I'm hearing similar things with a lot of, guys that I'm sharing this information with as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And for men, they'll tell you this when they teach you Formula 2 out of 9 in Master Chi's lineage, Healing Love, which is he frames the sexual kung fu, which is the Taoist equivalent of Tantra, which I think you're just genius to use that word. So it tells you right where it is. Skillful practice of sex. Master Chi calls it healing love. So they teach us healing love. They're like, look, men absolutely need this. Women, it's almost optional because women are sexually superior in the sense of not like, oh, I just like women more, not, whatever you're into. But physically speaking, men can't give birth, whatever. If we even tried that, basically kill us. So anyway, men have other things, kind of like other upper body strength, whatever. But long story short, men really, really need sexual practice to age well. There's a direct correlation between cognitive decline and sexual decline. So the more I realized that, I was like, all right, I need this practice. So that's why I devoted myself to it.
And I think this is kind of a big, focal point for me anyway, in sharing this with men, is because we're so improperly educated about sex and how to manage our sexuality, how to manage our sexual energy. And men don't realize that they're just literally throwing their vitality down the drain. Do you want to speak on just a bit about how relevant these practices are to men, like in this day and age in the world?
Sure, in general, but especially in this day and age. So the most valuable energy in our body, like in Ayurveda, for example, the 9 main fluids, the most valuable one is the sexual fluid, because think about what your body's doing. Master Chia articulated this really well in his book you referenced, Cultivating Male Sexual Energy. Every single sperm is a potential life. So the psychic energy of how many millions and millions and millions of sperm per release, so much psychic energy. Your body thinks you're making a new life, that you're passing on you're perpetuating your line. So the best of the best energies from all your organs, your brain, your energy system, it's just like, boom, release, here you go. And so when I learned that ED is caused, according to the Tao, which is epidemic nowadays, by when we get a low sperm count, the brain secretes a hormone that tells the body basically shut off that loss of energy, because it takes, according to the Tao and Chinese medicine that came from it, roughly 30 days, sometimes even double that, 60 days, to replenish one ejaculation. So the ancient language was called the golden state of preservation. I call it FOE, frequency of emission. And you know all this, but just for our listeners, for our men in his 20s, every 4 days, the Tao condones. Every 8 days, it starts doubling. So when you're in your 30s, every 8 days, in your 40s, like me, every 16 days. And then when you're in your 50s, and beyond, it's basically once a month. So just in general, to get people on the playing field, the Tao condones 2 ejaculations a month. However, that doesn't mean we don't be sexual. In fact, quite the opposite. Contact without leakage. We learn how to prolong it and get the highest pleasure, the highest health. It's food for our higher awakening. Even if you're atheist, okay, instead of God, you just call it consciousness. All that energy rises up. That we talk about the kidneys and the heart are like cosmic lovers. And in the Tao, kidneys govern water, heart governs fire. Well, the sex is multiplied by the love, and the love is multiplied by the sex. Because they're just like lovers, they get out of harmony. So we learn how to raise this energy up to a heart level, multiply it, hit higher states, build our spiritual evolution. You could say the different language we in the Tao refer to that as. So that was a little bit of a diatribe. Did I answer your question? What exactly did you even ask? Sorry.
Totally, no, that was great. Basically, the relevancy of these practices for men, because men, like porn addiction is an epidemic for men. This kind of unconscious, impulse-driven sexual experiences, basically, right? Where it's like, for a lot of men, it's like arousal is this discomforting thing. It's like as soon as they feel aroused, they feel like they need to ejaculate to kind of release that charge from their body. But the Taoist cultivation is to use that energy to open up the body so you can handle more and more of it, right? And so you use that energy instead of just dispersing it.
Yeah, thanks for bringing me back to focus, because I prepared kind of a lot of layers today to best serve you and our audience. It's really simple. Why do men need this? The best sex you ever had, the best health you ever had. There's a direct decline because kidneys govern sexual energy and the brain in the Tao. So there's a direct correlation between sexual energy decline and cognitive decline. Okay. It's just because the primary psychological motivation for roughly half of the people are we move away from suffering. So I'm like, all right, you want to move away from ED, prostatitis, yada, yada, here's your practice. But then the other half of the people move towards pleasure. Okay, the best sex you ever had, I got over an inch longer in my lingam just by stretching it out gently every day. Full body states, the higher spiritual evolution, if that's your calling, or just the best sex you ever had, the best potency if you're interested in reproducing, all of that. So you're going to move away from pain towards pleasure. And, this is really the missing link in my humble opinion, because I taught yoga at a high level in the most yoga rich place in the world in LA for almost a decade before I became certified through Master Chi, because I recognized, he has that missing piece. Most yoga systems and most people won't touch it. We even call it our private parts. We're so shut off, So I think the Tao really offers a lot for men in particular, but even women too, that want to go there. So
thank you for all this awesome. You have so much wisdom, and you've been doing this for so long. It's really awesome and inspiring. But so something I would talk about now is so for men, this kind of goes hand in hand with men not knowing how to manage their sexual energy, and this kind of epidemic of sexual dysfunction men are experiencing, erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, overall just sexual dissatisfaction. Do you have any kind of maybe some simple tips to address these kinds of sexual dysfunction that men are experiencing?
I have it right here, baby, whipping it out. Now, by watching and practicing, because we're talking about practice now, you agree you're a legal adult, have your doctor's consent, do so entirely at your own risk, forever release myself, Jonathan, and all affiliated individuals from liability from all information and lack of information in this video. That's a mouthful. Okay, so the perineum, is the most, and I'm an acupuncturist, licensed acupuncturist, it's the most vital point on the body, certainly for men, and arguably period. And certainly in relationship to our sexual energy. In fact, I have the Microcosmic Orbit picture right here. And so these are the 2 main meridians in the body that overflow to the whole system. Well, it all branches out of the perineum. The whole system, all your chakras. It's the most vital sexual reflexology point on your body. It's a really easy way to hit the prostate, which is the male G-spot. Most guys have prostatitis. So simply put, I sit on a tennis ball. The old tantric way was sit on your heel. You can sit on a chair. Most people don't sit on the floor quite as comfortably as I do. And if you don't want it as big as the tennis ball, you can sit on a racquetball. But simply grinding on your perineum for a minute, I go 30 seconds in one direction, 30 seconds in the other, and then I just kind of ride the camel, and then I just sit there and breathe. That acupressure is phenomenal for unlocking the prostate. I mean, so many things. And so that's one thing that like just kind of right off the cuff can really just help ground men, pulse the energy. Because one of the things, and this you probably have run into, I especially get this from some of my older clients, that with humility and my humble perception, looks like they're ejaculation addicts, like most people, most men. I have to ejaculate to flush out the prostate. That's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Yes, those few little involuntary contractions will release the prostate fluid, which is part of the ejaculation. However, you're exhausted now. And again, it takes 30 to 60 days to replenish one ejaculation. It gets worse as we get older. If you're sick, tired, whatever, it's even less. And then we have the world we have today where everyone has ED and yada, yada. So the pulsing of the perineum, either by internal perineum power, just Kegels, gently contracting, and gently, because I know you teach that's a little different. We can talk about that or not, but gently contracting and relaxing the anus or the perineum when you can isolate it, involuntarily is going to pulse the prostate and keep the circulation strong there. And then sitting on a tennis ball just for a few minutes a day. It feels so good. You want to do it a long time. I don't do it more than 5-10 minutes because then you run into the issues the long distance bicycle riders get, where it actually blocks it to correct it. But yeah, I just grind for a few minutes and then I just sit and meditate. It's phenomenal after the contact without leakage when you're really aroused, because again, it pulls that prostate fluid out of there, helps circulate it to the whole body, because again, it's the root of the orbit, so it kind of goes everywhere. So just that alone is usually the first thing I tell guys to do, is sit and grind on a tennis ball. And one other thing is squeezing your dragon pearls, which is Tao poetic code for the testicles. For women, tiger's pearls. Guys want to squeeze their dragon pearls every day. They say a number of times equal to your age. I do roughly 100. I just kind of squeeze and shake them. That, I mean, Master Chia and his master, Master One Cloud, said, anytime you need a boost of energy, physical, emotional, cognitive, sexual vitality, squeeze your boy, squeeze and shake them, because that's the root of our endocrine system. You affect one, you affect them all. We're really lucky as men, they're outside of the body, so they're easy to access. In the morning, I'm just like, I don't want to quite get up yet, especially in the colder months like now. I'll just sit there and kind of shake them, and you get that testosterone dump. So those are the first two things I tell guys to do. Grind on a tennis ball for a few minutes a day and do your dragon pearl squeezing every day, and you'll probably notice a difference in short order.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing the practical, tip that people could use right away. Because that's what it's really about. We can talk about the stuff, but if you're not doing something, to make the change, then, what good is it?
Yeah. And again, that's where I'm like, look, just try this. Yeah, we can get into more, how to hit full body states, the orgasmic upward draw, the Dantian Qigong. I mean, let's go for it. But if you just like a couple of things, if you just had those, you'd be on solid ground.
Awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about this experience of non-ejaculatory orgasm for men, because this is, as men, we're trained that if the ejaculatory orgasm is all there is. That's like the highlight of sex. It's like in porn, it's all emphasizing this great ejaculation the man has. It's like everything leads up to that, right? And for me in my early 20s, I was getting quite tired of this experience. I was like, you know what? I actually just feel like I don't feel good after I ejaculate. My energy's done. I can't keep going. So it's like, and of course, learning Taoist practices, it was like, okay, of course, there's got to be this higher sexual experience. So do you want to just talk a little bit about your experience of non-ejaculatory orgasm, the difference between ejaculation and orgasm, the subtleties of it?
Sure, totally. So let me ask you this. If you want to get to the peak of a mountain, so we're talking about peak sexual states, you want to get to the peak of the mountain. If you go to the foothills of the mountain, you start sprinting, you will never make it. You need to do, in the Tao, we call valley orgasm, where Master Chia's famous little limerick, 7 and 8 is just great. So you edge, you stimulate sexually from solo or dual cultivation with a partner. We usually start solo, as you know, to like get familiar with the techniques, because it's more energy in the bedroom chamber with a partner. But either way, personal or partnership stimulation, and you get up to 7 and 8 is just great. And then you do the orgasmic upward draw. So that's the equivalent of you're walking up the mountain or whatever pace. And then the orgasmic upward draw means you take a little break, you do the breathing, you draw the energy up into your body, and you start to hit full body states. And then so you kind of go down a little bit, which is one of the measurements you're doing it right. You kind of lose the erection just a little bit, and then okay, you go back for it. And then you go up a little more, and then take that moment, orgasmic upward draw, and a little bit more. So It's called the valley orgasm. And that's how you, and I've done it. I've climbed to the tallest mountain in California and other places. It's the exact same thing. You go, you rest, you go, you rest. So that's kind of the protocol, is that edging. And I'll tell you what, it takes composure, especially nowadays where most men get their training from porn. There's like 5 minutes and done. You're training yourself to just lose your energy. And here's another thing. I have to plug this right now. I don't teach anybody to prevent ejaculation, because you say don't do something, the mind immediately wants to do that. You're saying don't do. Prolong versus prevent. If you can last at least 20 minutes, that's the minimum amount of time it takes to hit full body states. That's the minimum amount of time it takes for your body to absorb what is considered the most healing energy. That's another thing that Master Chia made much more clear to me. The original energy was sexual energy, the egg, the sperm, boom, and our body's reproducing roughly every 7 years. Some people say quicker, almost to the cell, reproducing. Well, the DNA does that optimally when we experience orgasmic energy. That's why we gravitate to it stronger than anything else. Money is superimposed culturally. That whole system's collapsing right now. Sex in love and all of its expressions, but the pinnacle of it is sex. Well, the reason we gravitate is because your DNA replicates optimally when you experience orgasm energy. And so you're just sitting there like 5 minutes blast. You're not going to get the higher states. You're not going to get the higher pleasure if you can just last 20 minutes, even if you don't know anything. Full body orgasmic cultivation, like we're talking about, you know none of it. All you know is, I'm going to last 20 minutes. You're going to give your body a chance to absorb that energy. You're going to hit higher states, and you're probably going to have interest. Wow, that felt pretty good. How do I do this orgasmic upward draw business? So prolong versus prevent is always the framing that I present this in.
Awesome. I think that's a really, really great point too, because this is something I think Michael Wynn talked about as well, is that this focus on, I can't ejaculating to stop ejaculating. It becomes a barrier. You get in this, like semen retention is becoming kind of a buzzword on the internet now. Like more and more men are starting to understand this, but have you heard of the no fat movement?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of men are kind of approaching this in this it's like this suppression kind of mindset. Like they go from one extreme, ejaculating every day, to saying, no, I can never, ever ejaculate again. There's something wrong with me if I do. So it's like, finding it, basically having the right intention for this practice. It's not about trying to like stop something necessarily. It's about, like you said, enjoying, sustaining that state, allowing it to grow and grow. And then, if you at least go 20 minutes and then ejaculate, you at least allowed your body to absorb some of that energy. But usually by that time you're like, I feel good as it is. I don't need to ejaculate now.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah, you plugged the little kind of like smuggling the evolution, if you will, or the practice. You're like, wow, I feel pretty good. I don't think I want to go over the edge, or at the very least, I could like go another 5 minutes. And, a couple of the rhymes that Master Chia has given us that are just so helpful, because instead of this whole practice of just a few things, I already mentioned 1, 7 and 8 is just great. So, because once you get to 9 and 10, 9, you overcook the medicine, 10, you ejaculate. So 7 and 8 is just great, meaning you engage your breathing and your practice, and boom. The other one that I really like, that most guys at first are like kind of confused by, but if you can just hear me out a moment, enter soft, exit hard. Okay, soft and hard is a metaphor for hard meaning maximum excited, soft meaning not fully excited, but even physically not fully erect actually serves on a few levels. So the way it usually goes, especially in newer relationships, is you're doing all this making out, you're twisting stuff, and then the guy's fully hard, fully excited. He's already at a level maybe 7 or an 8. He goes inside, and he has just a tiny room to go before he blasts. And then so men and women are like yin and yang. Women are more yin, watery. Men are more yang, fiery. Well, fire burns up, explodes, and dies quick. Whereas water takes a while to boil, but then it stays hot for a long time. It really pisses women off. Up to 80% of them haven't had an orgasm at all. So basically what that means is more foreplay, more foreplay. You're fully excited. Wait a minute. Give her some more foreplay. And that's where one thing I do want to plug at some point, my bodywork videos, because the loverskill.com, that where I really integrated the Thai and the sexual reflexology. We'll get to that. But basically just foreplay, working on your partner, gives you a chance to get a little soft, gets her waters boiling. So then when you start going in, she's already hitting full body state. There's a lot of reasons why, that serves. But yeah, enter soft, exit hard. Just remember that little rhyme or that little saying.
Awesome. What kind of starting point would you recommend for men who are kind of transitioning into this new experience of sex, sexuality, and sexual cultivation? Like, what do you think are the best starting points for men with this?
Totally. Most guys, most people, we're all busy, whatever, I don't have time. They want to just cut right to the sexual practice. So that's why I mentioned grinding on a tennis ball is real helpful for a few minutes a day, squeezing the dragon pearls. And then from there, we get into the actual full body orgasmic cultivation, like the dragon pearl breathing. Essence of that, as I teach it, inhale, belly expands, exhale, perineum power. If you can get into that undulation where you inhale and you expand your belly and you exhale, and I have to keep saying it because you underline very well. Most guys are tight, tight, tight. The reason you don't really do that much is I've seen your content, which I love, is solid. But I find if I don't do any, I don't have quite the pelvic floor firmness I want. So simply inhale, belly expands, exhale and gently tighten your perineum or your whole rectal muscle so you can isolate the perineum. Because again, perineum is the master sexual reflexology point for the whole body. So every time you hit the perineum, either with your tennis ball or gently contracting it, it can help the sexual energy move out of here or it wants to just pop up into your whole body. So if you just get into that undulation, stimulate a little bit, and just inhale, belly expands, exhale, perineum power. And then when you get close to the edge, this is an ultra simplified orgasmic upward draw. Just inhale and hold and gently tighten your perineum and hold your breath. And that gentle perineum power with the breath held really makes the energy rise. And you do a long sigh and equalize your breath. Just one thing I have to mention on that. I know it's kind of a diatribe, but this is advanced stuff. I just gave you two techniques, the dragon pearl breathing, inhale, belly expands, exhale, perineum power. That's easy. That's the thing I would start with. But then when you start getting close to that edge, 7 and 8 is just great. Then you inhale and hold, and then tighten your perineum. When you hold your breath, it raises the energy. It activates the energy. It's very stimulating, and it can help you hit full body states, which is why I just mentioned it. However, it can make the energy rise so much, some people pass out. So I recommend if you ever get dizzy, just exhale. If you have high BP, you got to check with your doctor on all this. Like I said, by watching you practicing, you have your doctor's consent. But if you have high BP, you got to be really gentle. But in essence, if you're holding your breath with perineum power and you start to get a little dizzy, just exhale. That's why I tell people to sit down just to practice it first, because we usually do it standing. You're in horse stance, so you build up strong core power. Your feet, the most grounded point of the body, are on the earth. Again, the rooting. So I usually do it in horse stance, but you want to sit down first. Get a little chubs, little stimulation. Inhale, belly expands. Exhale, perineum power. And you get 7 and 8 close to the edge. Just inhale and hold perineum power, and just stop stimulating for a moment. Feel the energy rising. And just exhale a sigh and equalize your breath. If you just had that. Dragon pearl breathing, simplified orgasmic upward draw. You have a method. You have a method that you can use to hit full body states, supercharge your brain. I mean, there's a reason martial artists don't really ejaculate. Muhammad Ali would go up to a year before a fight, without ejaculating. The Knights Templar didn't ejaculate, apparently. But I think the no fappers, with total respect to their intention, and I was kind of in that camp for a while. I had this mantra: I do not ejaculate. I do not ejaculate. And then I would ejaculate and have a freaking shame attack. I don't think that's the answer, because I went up to a year once without ejaculating. I finally shot it, went 50 feet. That was a famous big Hollywood mansion. I literally counted 50 paces where the ejaculation was dripping off the wall. Sorry to be graphic, but that's what happened. So I think this practice gives you the chance to where you can have your cake, you can eat it too. Best sex you ever had, gives you the tools to bring your partner to the highest states, regardless you're into men, women, whatever, gives you the tools to help navigate their pleasure, because there's all these signs to be aware, they're about to hit full body states, whatever. So, to me, this is the answer. And I say it with humility. Guys, the sexual wounding is one of the biggest things we have, the shame, the doubt, and I'm just so grateful for people like you being ambassadors of this practice, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing so much practical techniques, how to actually do this work. It's awesome. And I have to say, I love your how you teach the power lock, the orgasmic upward draw. It really streamlined and simplified the whole process for me, because I remember I first learned this from Taoist Secrets of Love back in 2014. You're like squeezing everything, you're tensing everything. And I was like, it worked, but I was just like shoving up the sexual energy into my brain. I'd have like a headache for 2 days. Like, okay, something's not quite right here. So just like you teach, just bring it to the belly and then gradually, accustoming, I don't know if I'm saying the right word here, allowing the body to adjust to this higher level of energy is a much, more balanced approach.
Totally. Yeah. Maybe acclimate to it, but yeah.
Acclimate.
Yeah. Just exactly. Even today, when I taught a class earlier, so I had the set all ready to go. I do teach just to the belly first. And then later, when you have enough, okay, one center at a time, when you just start bringing it up to the brain and you're not familiar with the orbit and some of the other basics, exactly what you just said, it kind of gets stuck up there. And that's another thing. I just have to rewind for a moment. You asked about the practice. And I said, most people just want to cut right to the sexual practice, but I have to mention something really key here. As I already addressed, out of 9 formulas in Master Chi's lineage, the sexual formula is formula 2. What's formula 1? It's the basic Qigong, the basic grounding, the basic meditations. A little interesting fact about sexual energy that I didn't know, most people don't know, that might be interesting to your listeners. Sexual energy has 2 primary characteristics. It amplifies and it binds. So we feel bound to whoever we have sex with. It's like this magnetic energy. Okay, we get that. But the amplification power, the number 1 cause of disease in the Tao, and Chinese medicine that came from it, is negative emotions. Even if we're suffering from something physical, how we feel about it is the heart of it, okay? And so the most destructive negative emotion, as you know from the cultivators, the anger, that anger in the liver. You get people, waking up their sexual energy on this ultimate level. It's like pouring fuel on your negative emotions. So at minimum, I think all of Formula 1, Inner Smile, 6 Healing Sounds, Microcosmic Orbit, which, by the way, the orbit alone was originally a sexual practice to circulate sexual energy up to the brain. I know you're aware of that. But if I'm just going to teach people the sexual practice, only like, look, dude, I just don't have time for anything else. Just give me the sex. I'm smuggling in the 6 healing sounds. At minimum, you got to know at least like the heart sound, long ha, to just relax that excess heat and the negative emotions, so that the sexual energy amplifying good energy. So I just need people to be aware. Oh, he taught dragon pearl breathing, orgasmic. Yes, but I would suggest the 6 healing sounds on my 2 wellness channel. There's a free video. It's all over YouTube. Learning those long exhalations can really help you calm your negative emotions. So then you're amplifying good energy.
That's a great point. And that's, something I really stress as well, is like, you must do the foundational work, or else with the sexual energy, you can create a monster for sure.
Oh. Yeah, or else. I like that. You can just cut it off there, or else.
Or else. So, we're in this time in the world where a lot of, we're kind of on this global crisis. It's like people's, we're in this virtual reality people are living in. People are living in fear, anxiety. A lot of people don't know how to keep themselves healthy. They're relying on these weird external systems. So do you have just a few tips for how, people in this world can stay healthy, happy, and just like in balance, in these interesting times that we're living in?
Totally. It's a great question. Everything we've been discussing, to have some kind of personal practice. If you look at totalitarian systems, which they're kind of techno-totalitarian, trying to take over, the first thing they get rid of is God. Now, even if you're atheist, even if you're agnostic, whatever, instead of calling it God, like, because in the Tao and Buddhism, they don't really, a little bit in Buddhism, the 6 realms on money, power, whatever, Buddha's the teacher of God and humans, whatever. But overall, they don't have a personal God like we do in the West. It's basically consciousness and energy. It's conscious energy. So everything's fractal. So if I'm conscious and I have energy, whatever kind of cookie cuttered me from itself, most likely is conscious and energy. So you don't necessarily have to say God, but some sort of relationship with you could call it inner authority. Even if you're purely atheist, fine, my inner nature, not just getting, because the reason the totalitarian governments want to cut off any spiritual practice, any God, any religion, whatever, and I know spiritual practice and religion can be different, and I know religions can be exceedingly corrupt, but I'm talking their core, pure intention. The reason they cut that off is because then the state becomes your God. And you just conflate truth and authority, and you have no inner authority, okay? So some sort of practice where you're tuning in. I mean, even just your gut brain, we have an equal number of neurons in our belly, heart, and our head. The head brain can make sense of anything. Your own relationship with nature. What does my gut feel about this? What does my heart feel about this? That's why I love the inner smile. 4 words to sum it up: smiling sun, heart breathing. And then you just tune in, you get parasympathetic. Okay, heart, what do you have to say about this? So some sort of practice. This practice, I think, goes the longest. It's religiously neutral. There's no gods that you have to, they don't mention the word God once in the Tao that I've ever heard. It's all just your own energy. What's nature doing? How can I align my actions with it? And then one other thing I just have to say in the face of this is the most unprecedented situation we've ever had. It's a global transformation. We've never faced as much uncertainty. And because this is so deeply intertwined with the sexual practices, I'm going to plug a little saying. My yoga teacher, my original training was in traditional Tantra. My yoga teacher is a Bengali Buddhist. And he said, look, I'm going to teach you Tantra, but you must know this mantra. I am internal. I just say it in my mind. I don't even verbalize it for the most part. I am fearless. I am shameless. I am doubtless. 1, 2, 3. Because fear is the negative emotion for the kidneys, which regulates our sexual energy and our cognition and a lot of other stuff, our brain. And so when we're afraid, that's basically the biggest problem in life and in death is fear, is like the mother of negative emotions. Anger is kind of the yang negative emotions, fear is the yin, but fear shuts off our sexual energy, pure and simple. So fear right now, false emotion appearing real, as Tony Robbins says, is fear. Fear right now is fear. The fear in the past is shame, and fear in the future is doubt. So in my mind, I am fearless, I am shameless, I am doubtless, because even if you don't have any sexual trauma, if you're fortunate to not have any, you or your ancestors. Again, it's one of the biggest ones we have collectively. So I have guys that were, abused by their parents, all this crazy stuff. I teach them this, but then all that stuff comes back. It's like opening up a wound. I'm fearless, shameless, doubtless. But even if you have no sexual trauma, one of the reasons I learned jujitsu is I work mostly with men, and some of these guys would like want to attack me after, because the saying, you're going to get more pleasure than you've ever had or your ancestors ever had. That's not just a buzzword. That's the reality. And then now, well, you're a man, I'm a man, you made me feel this good, so now I must be gay, and now they get all the shame attack, whatever. So in this whole spectrum of life on earth today, and then dealing with a sexual practice, and a great internal mantra to eradicate fear across all time zones is, I am fearless, I am shameless, I am doubtless.
I love it. Thank you. And that's why I personally became so passionate about sharing this work, is because I think the sexual, the healing of the collective sexual energy is one of the most powerful things we can do. And I think that if everyone was doing this work, the planet would dramatically shift. And on that note, just kind of wrap up, do you want to kind of talk on this? We're kind of, people like you, people like in the Healing Tao, all these practitioners, instructors, we're keeping these ancient arts alive. These things have been literally passed down through thousands of years. And in this world of instant gratification, people want to just push a button and have all their problems solved. They want to be, entertained. This concept of self-mastery has become, and discipline is becoming more difficult for the collective as a whole. So just kind of the relevancy of these practices in this time that we're in.
Oh, that's a great question, man. A good one to finish up on too. To me, there's just no other way. So part of the thing is with the Tao is it's very medical. It's basically Chinese medicine. What are your negative emotions doing, and so forth. To me, that self-reliance and ability to tune in. Oh, I've got sadness in my lungs. I've got fear in my kidneys. I've got anger in my liver, whatever. I think is really, really important. Again, in the face of the most uncertain times we've ever had. All this. I mean, just the sexual dysfunction alone were the new norm. It's actually not normal. Common and normal are different. Prostate problems, testicular problems, ED, all this stuff. Just that alone. Okay. There's a term in yoga, especially the energy centric ones like Tao yoga, charge compression. Okay. Everything is about your chi pressure. Everything. So it's like you have enough energy, everything's good. Someone says something really mean, and you're just like, all right, well, I didn't appreciate that, but I don't really care. Versus when you're low energy and someone just barely says something, maybe they didn't even mean it. It's the end of the world. To keep your chi pressure high, it's kind of like I whipped this out just for a visual, like we got into last time with the Dantian Qigong, where you're pushing on your core and really building up your chi. This practice gives you time-tested tools that, again, are religiously neutral. You could be full-blown Acidic Jew, whatever hyper serious religion you are. You could be totally atheist or anywhere in between. Manage your energy. Learn how to do charge compression by bringing your focus. Chi follows focus, the unconscious desire to be famous. Hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. It's because you get the chi. Like back to your question, what can I do? Learn how to pay attention. Learn how to listen to the sound of your breath. Learn how to put your focus and therefore your energy in your center. And then you're going to have more energy here for your sexual, your emotional, your immune, your cognitive, your whole system. So yeah, I think basic healing Tao. I mean, there's some resources, like you mentioned, my 2 Wellness channel. I've got a bunch of free videos on there, 6 healing sounds. I love the work you do on the men's practice, so I don't want to steal your thunder, but just in case guys want to see my presentation, you're already beyond me, brother. So, I mean, you know, I love your framing. You're just, I really respect what you're doing, but Raw Tantra, you already mentioned it. I've got some free stuff. There's a great video on YouTube, Raw Tantra 9 Essentials, I think I called it. Filmed that up in mountain country, real beautiful. But I do want to draw the attention. I already mentioned it. I just really quick want to underline, and then any final statements, you know, you want from me. Loverskill.com. So loverskill.com. That is my massage channel. There's some basic sexual mastery. That's it. Raw Tantra, as the name implies, is raw. It's like unclad, full blown, hanging to the weight. That's like, you know, full blown, you know, just so you know what you're getting into. But Lover Skill is very G-rated, all clothed. It's there's some solo practices in there, but the main thing is the body work. I've spent years combining the Thai massage I learned in Thailand with the high-level sexual reflexology and tantric acupressure that I've learned over the years. You want to own your partner's pleasure, I tell you what. And there's tons. You can just go on YouTube, some of my free Lover Skill videos, and then you can of course subscribe. It's only $9.99 a month, new massage video a month. I film mostly in this room, but yeah, those are my resources. But in essence, get a practice. Learn how to just do belly breathing, squeeze your dragon pearls, learn how to put your focus and therefore your energy in your center, not freaking out on the crisis du jour. You know, bring your focus and therefore your energy back to yourself, and you're going to have some discernment to deal and not take the bait of fear.
All right. Thanks, Loren. Thanks for dropping so much information. You know, you really embody this lifestyle of cultivation, and your passion just radiates from me. So really appreciate you being here, brother. And where can people find you on social media as well?
Yeah. I mean, I've kind of, with this whole situation,
you've been throwing it out there.
Yeah, I mean, I have an Instagram page. Your Instagram page is phenomenal, Tao Arts. So there's some little sound bites on there, but you know, I do most of my training one-on-one or in small groups. So loverskill.com, rawtantra.com. You can see my free Raw Tantra stuff on YouTube. I would just email me if you have any questions. intimatetao@gmail.com is one of my emails. You know, you can also through my contact page on Lover Skill or Raw Tantra. Those are great resources because I have tons of free stuff. The Raw Tantra, the Lover Skill, there's all kinds of free just on YouTube to wet your whistle, and then you can go on from there. But yeah, if you want to email me, intimatetao.com, I'm right there.
All right. Thanks a lot for joining me, Loren. Thanks for taking the time, and we will talk soon.
Thank you so much. Love you always, man. Thanks for your great work and your radiance. Blessings to all who are listening. Practice well and be well.